So welcome everybody to Meet the Artist. My name is Julianna Sandholm-Bark. I've created Meet the Artist lecture series in March 2018, and it's really sort of the best thing I've done at Webster University, to be totally subjective about it, but it's such a pleasure to have artists come and present their work and their creative process. And today we have Lina Bessonova, who's here all the way from Florence. And she's kind of a celebrity here at Webster because she was a student, right, who graduated from Webster from the Media Communications program. And she's here now to share what's been happening in her life since she graduated.
And even before that. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Julianna. Thank you so much, guys, for coming. And let's start. Like Julianna said, I graduated from Webster in 2014. And since then, got my master's in photography, and right now I have my own analog photo lab in Florence, Italy. So how it all started right here at Webster at this tiny little dark room in the back of the campus in the basement. And it was all a complete, I don't know, probably even a mistake. Because when I came here to Webster, I was done with photography. I did not want to do a single shot in my life ever again. I came here to study radio production because back in Moscow, I was working at the radio station. I was working as a radio presenter. I loved it so much that I wanted to probably maybe produce my own radio shows or something like that. So the degree media communications and radio production sounded so good to me that I ended up here. Why I did not want to do photography? Because I was doing digital photography for like 4 years before that. I had a pretty popular travel blog. Back then no one was a travel blogger, you know, it was like 13 years ago. So no one was a travel blogger. I was one of the few, and that's why I got a pretty big audience. But then it got so tiring, so repetitive. You just travel places, you click those photos, you edit them in Photoshop, everyone says wow, and then what? So it was so easy to me that photography just lost its meaning. So when I came here and my advisor told me, hey, we don't have radio production classes this semester. Do you mind taking a photo class? You need credits anyway. I was like, no. I want to take anything but not that. She's like, look, with your schedule, it's only this class that fits, so please take it. I said, I don't want to. She was like, look, have you done photography before? It will be an easy A. Yeah, that's what she told me. That convinced me, of course. That would convince anyone. And to tell the truth, I did not get an A for this class because I came in, I was so confident of myself. I came to Francescas Quest absolutely demotivated. I was like, okay, what's new here? What can you surprise me with, you know? And just the fact that it was analog was already surprising. I thought that analog died back in the 80s, 90s. I was like, okay, film camera, fine. I took my pictures, it was all right. But then the real magic happened when I developed my first roll of film. And since then, my life really changed. I have never taken a radio production class, by the way. I realized something, that I'm at my own place in the world. I don't know how else to explain it, honestly. It was almost a surreal feeling. It was something that I should be doing this, but I thought, hey, you're crazy. You know, who does analog? Like, it's something completely stupid to do nowadays when everyone shoots digital. So I fell in love especially with the printing aspect. This is my first enlarger, and Francesca says it's still there. So I'm gonna go visit it right after this talk. I wanna take a selfie with it. So despite all this love for photography, which developed over the first 2 semesters when I took the photo classes, I realized no one cares about film. That's as simple as that, and especially in Geneva. You know, in Geneva, it's in general hard with art, and also mind that it was 8 years ago, and there was no Instagram back then, and all the online communities were not as strong as nowadays. So I was really in a very weird position. I thought, what am I gonna do? I love this so much, but who cares about film? Who shoots film? What am I gonna do with it? How am I gonna work in arts? I know no one in arts. I know nothing about the art world. I have no connections, and I don't necessarily want to be an artist. It's the word that I did not like in general. And maybe I was unlucky, but the art people that I met were not the most pleasant ones. Afterwards, I changed my mind. I met so many amazing artists, but back then that was my thought. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm stupid. And I almost abandoned photography. I focused on my media communications degree, on the marketing studies. There I got all A's. I'm like looking at Francesco right now. I still can't forgive that first B that he gave me. So marketing, I loved it too. And I almost thought of actually abandoning photography in favor of journalism or maybe public relations, something like that. But I thought, no, like I just can't give up photography. And if I give up photography, I will forever regret it. And I have just one life to live. So, okay, let it be a mistake, let it be something stupid. And I decided to go for my MFA in photography. So my love for photography won, but it's not a happy end. Because, okay, I found my MFA. I was like, yay, I'm gonna be doing analog photography for 2 years. And it turned out to be so difficult. It turned out to be crazy difficult because making like a decent print, you can teach anyone, as long as this person isn't blind, to make a decent print in like under 1 hour. Like, it's really, really easy. But then to make an actually perfect print that speaks to other people and expresses what you feel, this is something completely different. And I would print over and over the same image, and I was crying all the time in the darkroom. Thank goodness our program was really small and I was alone in the darkroom most of the time, so no one saw this tragedy. And I just tried every trick I could find online. I wasted and wasted paper. And eventually, I realized that, okay, I can print better, because as you know, the formula for success is 5% talent, 95% hard work, and 10,000 hours of work until you get to, let's say, a master, not master, but professional level. I did not count on my 5% of talent. Honestly, there are people who are much more talented than me, who have much better ideas, who see things better. I do not have illusions about my own exceptional abilities at all. So I was like, okay, I need to really bet on those 95% and just to work. So I was working like 8 to 10 hours a day in the darkroom, including weekends. I was not going out. I had zero social life, none of that. I just excluded everything. So by the end of the first year, finally, I could print the way I liked it. And this is the end show of my first year during the masters. It's a large format photography, nothing special, because here I confronted another problem. What do I want to say now? Okay, I can express things, I can do good quality work. What do I want to say? And I realized I have nothing to say. Those images are just, okay, I've always been drawn to abandoned places, but mainly because it's the beautiful light, beautiful texture that you can really work on printing in an interesting way. It was all an exercise of a skill rather than actually doing some meaningful work. So this print is actually this huge. I still don't know how I did it, honestly. I haven't printed this huge since, maybe once. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could work. I could work with big papers and complicated negatives, but it meant nothing. So I realized, okay, I need a story, right? Because art is a lot, especially photography, is a lot about telling stories. So you always need some extraordinary story. You need either to find interesting people or an interesting place or an interesting event, and then people will look at your stuff. Which wasn't the case for me. I was stuck in Florence and there was nothing happening. It's like, it's safer than Geneva. I mean, for real, it's boring. So
Francesca's dying right now. Francesca's dying right now.
So I was like, I give up. But then I realized something very interesting, that what is extraordinary is not about the events or about some special people. You don't have to run on the other side of the world to discover something. All discoveries are near you. And it's the way that you look at them that makes them special. Not the fact they are located somewhere else or that they're part of some huge event. maybe even that they were a part of your life. That's what matters. So all of my images are never ever staged, ever. So everything that is happening, it's like, that's how I found it. But they're not random either. There is always a huge story behind them, which I never tell, never explain. But it surprises me how people are actually able to see behind. When I was exhibiting this work, I had people coming to me and being like, oh, like this has to deal with some kind of emotion, some kind of feeling of melancholy and detachment. I was like, I probably am showing too much, you know? So art is a really dangerous thing if you're not willing to expose yourself. First of all, you won't be able to do meaningful work, but at the same time, you can't protect yourself too much. Yeah, you can't protect yourself, otherwise you're risking doing some very uninteresting things. This is another image I selected just to show you. It was right after I took a 10-day meditation course, Vipassana, where you don't talk for 10 days. You just meditate for 6 to 8 hours a day. And this was right after I went out of there. It's one of the places in Tel Aviv. Yes, I think it's in Tel Aviv or some city nearby. It was in Israel. So all of this is water tubes, and water is like a huge metaphor for the emotional state. So they're all contained and running, and those are like the, how do you call them, the counters? Like, yeah. So the water is being measured and counting, and those emotions are contained, and then there is this dancing or dancing couple behind. It has a lot of layers, even though this picture is quite simple if you look at it. The real prints are really beautiful. The reproductions on screen are hideous. And right here is, this is at the meditation center. This is the chair on which I've been sitting for those whole 10 days in silence. And the last day, I was like, I need to immortalize this moment. So again, it can be a metaphor for something, but it can be a story. And there is a bigger story, how I got to this meditation center and why I got there, you know, but of course I'm not revealing that, you know, there should be some kind of mystery. And again, this is also about mystery and covering up something with glass, with curtains, and you don't know what's inside, but there is something and you kind of want to have a look, but then maybe you're just content with looking outside and taking life as it is, you know, if you can't see something, you just can't. So, I'm talking more about my work. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can find a video where I'm explaining all of this. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about my work, first of all, because I don't like it. I mean, I love my work. I just don't like talking about it too much. But I want to use this time to talk about something else, which is also as important to me, is about analog photography itself. Why do analog photography? It's a question I asked myself 8 years ago, 5 years ago. I've been asking myself this question up until, no, maybe now I do have the answer, finally. So, what is the place of analog photography if we have digital? Why go through all this pain of risking not having images in the first place, then risking scratching your negatives or getting dust on them and smelling this chemistry, being in a dark, humid place, which is not pleasant. And then when you're printing, you have so many disappointments. While in Photoshop, you just adjust things. You can go back anytime. You're comfortable. You're sitting in front of your iMac. You know, it feels much cooler, right? So, the modern art world is very conceptual and interdisciplinary. Less and less people are doing just one type of art. Most people are blending painting with performance, with video, with sound, with installation, like working with found objects, and photography as well. So I don't think that photography as like just analog photography is for everyone. But I do believe that it's an extremely, extremely valid tool for artists who can blend it with other art. And what makes analog actually completely different and really special. This is one of my two favorite quotes, which says, "Our writing equipment takes part in the forming of our thoughts." What we use what we write with actually affects what we think. It is 100% true. Take a beautiful pen, beautiful piece of paper, and your thoughts will be formed differently than if you take a cheap Sharpie and just a napkin or something, like, you know. So the tool that you are using will be affecting what you're expressing, how you're expressing it. And don't ever underestimate it. Again, it affects everything. If you even do programming, if you do it on a computer that crashes every 5 minutes, like, I don't think you will write good code. But if you do it on a nice machine that you actually enjoy and you're in a nice space, you will produce completely different work. So, let's start with cameras. Each of those cameras needs a different approach, and it changes you when you shoot with this camera. A 35mm camera or medium format that is handheld and you just quickly move around with it and point and click and run, it makes you more of a hunter than an image maker. When you slow down with a large format camera, there you have like 1-2 shots. You put it on the tripod, and it's a decisive moment, but not in the sense that Henri Cartier-Bresson said it's a decisive moment which you click and you catch it. No, it's your decision to communicate this particular moment, to have this particular thought immortalized in your negative, and actually risking not ever having it, because you can mess it up when you process. So when you take a pinhole camera, which I put in there, I never used it, to be honest. It's more experimental, it's more fun. It makes you a different person yet again. If you take a twin lens camera, much less threatening. That's why a lot of street photographers use the twin lens cameras, because there is this action of approaching the person and like covering your face and shooting into someone's face. You have a camera here and you have your face open, which makes you more approachable. It's a lot of little psychological things that you don't get in digital. Well, some people do agree to be photographed just because I smile at them, but most will be like, nah, we don't know what you're gonna do with this shot. Like, are you gonna put it in line? Like, that's weird. When I shoot with my 4x5 or 8x10 camera, the one that's on the tripod, people come to me. They're like, oh, what's this thing? Can I look? I'm like, yeah, sure, have a look. Can I take your portrait? And people open up to you immediately. And the portraits you get with this camera are completely different. You cannot achieve this with digital, period. And here, I will be talking about why printing matters. So this is a direct scan of a negative. So it's an interesting image itself. I caught this car right between these towers. It's the Monte Carlo Casino. And here we go, the print. It's completely different. And here we have it a little closer. You see, it's the same content, right? The image is same, the information is same, the car hasn't moved anywhere. But the expressive power of this image, and I wish you saw the print. The print is just gorgeous. I printed a few for myself as well. I think I'll hang it on my wall because I love it. For instance, you don't see the horizon. Here you don't see the horizon at all. On my screen you see it a little. On the print, there is a tiny, tiny fine line of the horizon. Technically, I could have printed to have the horizon, like it's there in the negative, It's not a badly exposed negative, it's very well exposed. But the decision of erasing it makes the picture a little more metaphoric. I always try to make things not what they are, but what they could be, something that is not as realistic. That's why when I print, I always leave a little bit of pure white on the image, which can be considered a technical mistake in many cases, but it's not because I can't print, or it's not because my negatives are bad. It's just because this white area, I feel like it just makes the print a bit more alive. This is another image. This is a straight negative scan. And even if you look at it like this, even if you print it like this, it's absolutely correct. And there you have the whites, you have the blacks, you have a great range of tones. If anyone brought me this print, I would say, good. I would say, great print. But then, when I printed it, I wanted to be, oh, it's so beautiful. I printed it 2 days ago. I'm so excited about it. Oh, it's overexposed on this presentation. I wish I brought it. It's white, not wide. And I'm talking about those technical details, but they matter a lot when you see the object. The story behind this print is that it's not just a simple stage again. It's never staged. This sketch was made by my boyfriend about 2 years ago. It was at my previous apartment, and it was done with charcoal, so which means it smudges really easily. This guy left. He was from the US, so he left, and I was left with this sketch, and it's actually me on this one because I was sleeping like this, and he just quickly made the sketch. I wrapped it, and I just kept it for 2 years, and afterwards in the new apartment where I had like shelves installed, I had to move it, and I covered it in other plastic to protect it from dust. And then, as I was about to arrange it, I walk by and I see, wow, this girl is sleeping under a blanket. There is a story of this object, but then there is a different story how she's sleeping. Maybe she's waiting for something, who knows. So, but the light was bad at my apartment. The light was bad that day, and it was raining 2 or 3 days afterwards, and I needed good light. So I was literally walking around this spot for 3 days and just not touching anything. And when my dog decided to play in there, I almost killed her. Eventually, I got the right light. I'm so happy about it. So I really like how photography, especially film photography, makes you wait, makes you think more, makes you, I don't know, I guess it makes you more sensitive to everything. And especially in printing, when you do a lot of tests, you do get attached to the object that you're doing in a completely different way than when you do it with digital. With digital, you kind of get attached to the image because you say, oh, this image is like so cool, right? It's so interesting, it looks so good, it will make me famous, hey. But when you do something with your own hands, it's a completely different experience. It's like your baby. This image, I printed it. It was good. I had an order of several prints. I had them dry. Next day I come, I'm like, no, they just don't look good. I can print it better. So it just all goes to trash bin, and I do it again. Guess what? I did it 3 times. So it's a constant process, and I'm still crying over my prints all the time. All the time. It's a disaster. I don't know when I will stop. I hope I will. So by that moment, what I really want you to understand, that a comparison of digital and analog, even though we do it all the time. It's completely incorrect. Those are things from 2 different universes. Just like when photography was introduced, everyone thought that painting was dead, because for years before, what painters were trying to do is to make the most realistic image possible. And you were considered a good painter when you were doing something that is closest to reality. And when photography came, people said, hey, we don't need to paint anymore. And guess what? Painting hasn't died. It hasn't died, it's well alive. And you don't compare anymore photography with painting, right? But people used to do it back then. So it's something that is happening right now with digital and analog. Yes, you got some technology that is giving you more realistic, more predictable, higher quality debatable, but let's say higher quality, more reliable results. You just click a button and you get absolutely identical prints, which in fact it's not that true, because fine art, digital printing is every bit as hard. You get affected by humidity, by weather, by the age of inks in your printer, even by the altitude at which you are. It's crazy. You shouldn't think that digital is the easy thing. It's just a different story. And maybe someday a technology will come that will represent reality even better than digital photography, and digital photography will become something like analog photography, but a different one, you know? So we shouldn't exclude that at all. And what is next? That's the fun part. When I started doing analog, and again, I had this travel blog, I started publishing some of my analog stuff, and what I got as a response was, your photography sucks. Why are you doing analog? You're just trying to show off. You're just trying to be different. You're just, picking up this camera to be cool. I knew it's not true, but how can you prove this, right? You can't really prove it. But thanks to those people who did not accept my film photography, yeah, I'm really grateful to them. Because Instagram started being a thing back then, and I posted some of my film stuff on Instagram, but no one liked it. Like literally, I would have like 100 likes on my selfie and 10 likes on something that's related to film. So I got mad, and I started a separate account for photography. 2 weeks later, I'm like, 150 followers, okay. I post something else, I get a lot of likes, I get comments, I get people texting me, I post something else. So, in the end, my photo Instagram grew so much faster than the personal one. Now, no one cares about my selfies. Maybe I'm getting older, I don't know. So, but now it's clearly not a problem anymore. which was again a surprise to me, how many people care about analog. Once you put not just your work out there, I was putting also some backstage videos just because I liked sharing my passion. Again, I didn't care about promoting my work. I didn't really think too highly of it. It was just the process that I loved and I wanted to share. That's it. And I wanted to show others how beautiful it is. And suddenly I started getting people who were texting me and saying, hey, let's do this collaboration together. Let's do a workshop. Like, can you come here and talk about photography? It just started, and right now it's becoming absolutely crazy because after I graduated, I have more free time, and now that I had my own lab, I don't know what to do. I have like events literally every month where I have to go and talk about analog, and people are willing to listen. So it's something completely crazy. I still cannot fully believe it, and maybe it will end one day. I hope it won't, or maybe it will transform into something else. So the last 2 points I wanted to make in this presentation. I was talking about art this whole time, but I want to talk about my time at Webster. Because again, I took a photography certificate, but I was taking so many other classes. And you can think that to become a successful, not even just artist, because I wasn't thinking of artists, successful anything, you have to focus just on that. But in fact, right now, you're at a unique moment in your life, in a unique environment where you can learn all the stuff that you will need in your life later, I promise you. Public speaking like I'm speaking right now, I was not able to do it when I started Webster at all. Going in front of 3 people was terrifying. Even though I worked on the radio, it's completely different. There you're alone, and you kind of feel safer. You're talking, but then at the same time, you're protected. Here, I'm not protected from you. Like, all of you can start yawning, and like talking to each other or being on the phone, and it affects me. It's a really important thing that while I was at Webster, I was doing every presentation I could. Here, no one cares about what I'm doing. No one is going to be recording it. No one is going to be putting it on YouTube. And probably most of the people will forget it after class ends. So I have to overcome this fear right now. I will not have time to do it afterwards. No one will give me an opportunity. No one will give me teachers. No one will give me an audience or topics. This is one thing. Public speaking is something that will separate you from the rest of the people because most people are terrified of it. So whatever you do, arts or not arts, if you're able to talk without fear with the audience, you will, first of all, you got promoted faster because people will start sending you to conferences. They will send you to speak to journalists, even if you're like assistant manager. But if the manager cannot talk and you can, guess who's gonna talk? It's one skill that I honestly advise you to work on while you're in a safe environment. Afterwards, no one will be nice to you afterwards. No one. Everyone will be looking at your mistakes. And the second thing, writing is something that most artists cannot do. And that's what I realized when I came to the art school. Yeah, we're all cool artists, we can create, visualize something, but then at the end when you ask about their work or you go to their website, they have either extremely long descriptions which are terrible, no one reads them ever, that are not suitable for press releases. Absolutely. You have to have information on your website that a journalist can copy and paste. And you know how many publications on the internet I got just because it was easy for journalists or for people who write content, just copy paste stuff from our website. You have to make it all oriented towards the media, and you will learn all of this in media communications classes. I don't know what your guys' degrees are, but I'm saying like this will help you so much in any kind of self-promotion. And also writing is important, even whatever you do, even if you do, I don't know, any kind of management, finance, anything, international relations. If you write well, you will get promoted and not the smarter guy next to you who cannot write or talk. It's just, right now it's all about communication. So the better you communicate, the most successful you will be. And again, there are so many artists who are much better than me, but who cannot write a decent press release about their own work, and who are afraid of public speaking. And where are they? We don't know about them, sadly. There are people who are looking for talent and stuff, but are you going to just sit there and wait while your talent is discovered? Like, I could have waited until now, and probably, I don't know what I would be doing. Second, yes, here, trust your intuition. And here I will tell you really weird story, which started about 13 years ago. I had an idea. I went to my mommy and daddy and said, Mommy, Daddy, I want to learn Italian. Mommy and Daddy looked at me and said, you're stupid. Why do you need Italian? Learn Spanish. I went to some Italian courses that were terrible. I gave them up. I took other ones. But anyway, I did not learn Italian that well. But this idea always lived inside me. It was just out of literally nowhere. But thankfully, at some point, I already was studying at Webster, and then I went back to Russia and I got stuck there for a month. I was like, I'll take Italian classes. So I finally found a good professor, and then afterwards I came here and continued with Francesca's wife taking Italian classes. So my Italian became quite decent. And the thing is that if I was learning, let's say, Spanish, it wouldn't be the same thing, because I was looking for an MFA in photography, right? And I was looking in Europe. I didn't want to go to the US because it's just far from my family. And the only MFA in photography in Europe was in Italy, in Florence, just like by magic. Okay, Italian, it was an American university, so I didn't really need to speak Italian. But I also didn't have time to learn Italian there. So the Italian I learned before was the one that I had. But this allowed me to make connections in the city. Those people who came there and were taking classes, they still had their Italian at a very basic level. I was able to talk to, at least with a lot of mistakes, but to everyone. I was able to communicate. So that way I met a lot of people who helped me so much, like so much, to start, especially starting my own lab. And if I hadn't listened to my intuition many years ago about Italian, I would have nothing right now. I would have finished my MFA, and I don't know what I would be doing right now, because making my wonderful lab, this is my beautiful lab, it's even more beautiful right now. I added some bookshelves, and there are works of my students on that wall over there. So it's so beautiful, actually. But it was destroyed completely when I got this place. I would never be able to, first of all, to purchase it, because Italian bureaucracy is hell. Italian workers, even worse. It took me a year to do those 45 square meters. It took me 3 months to get water. It took me 6 months to get internet. And without Italian, it would have not happened. Without that crazy little idea 13 years ago, I would have absolutely nothing. So if you have some irrational ideas, and I bet all of you have some irrational ideas, give them a chance. You know, just give them a chance, a little bit of a chance, and just follow what you believe that is right, because sometimes it can bring you to some levels of happiness you just cannot imagine. And those are some books that actually helped me along the way, because I had no confidence in what I was doing at any point of this journey ever. So about the Big Magic book, it's about how to approach your art if you are in the arts, or how to create, or how ideas come to their authors and how you can express them. It's a really beautifully written book, and it actually takes a lot of pressure of you when you want to create something, and when you doubt yourself, when you think you're not good enough. It's wonderful. Then the other book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, has been my motto, because I've been afraid of everything I was doing. Literally everything. And I can't say this particular book changed my life. I've read tons of motivational books. I think I've read every motivational book on the market. I can't read them anymore. But you know, if no one supports you, if your friends don't understand you, what you're doing, if your parents are like, okay, yeah babe, do whatever you want, we will support you, but we don't know what you're doing, and you don't have an environment that supports you because maybe you're in the wrong place, you know, you do need to find motivation somewhere, and books are the best place. Books are the best place. The style of Richard Branson's books, again, this guy is awesome. He built an empire. You know, he knows a thing or two about failures and success and about motivating yourself. So those are not the only books, but probably the style of these books will kind of help you in whatever you're doing, and if you're daring to do something that others were maybe too afraid to do. Because again, we just have one life, you know, why not have fun? So, thank you guys so much. Yes. Thank you.